and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex. This week is all about out-of-body experiences, starting with the indie title, Rain.
Bring an umbrella. Also this week, Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe lend their acting chops to David Cage's latest experience, Beyond Two Souls.
From the depths of the other side, we know almost nothing about them.
I've been living with an entity that I know nothing about since the day I was born.
And we step into the massive shoes of LeBron James in NBA 2K14.
Plus, Dave Callan is back to deliver us a lesson in lore and more Tiny Power.
But before all that, can you guess the game for this week? You know what time it is. Go on.
Is it news time?
It's news time.
Joseph Staten, one of the lead writers and director of cinematics for the Halo series, has left Bungie. Staten was a veteran of the studio, having worked there for over 15 years, and most recently was the writer and design director for the upcoming online shooter, Destiny. In his farewell post, he says he is leaving to pursue other creative challenges.
Chief, I've lost your signal! Chief! Chief!
The company behind the original Neo Geo console, SNK Playmore, has unexpectedly cancelled its licensing agreement with publisher Tomo Inc., the makers of the retro-style Neo Geo X Gold. SNK is demanding that units of the handheld be pulled from store shelves and all manufacturing ceased. Tomo has responded by denying any breach of contract and insists they shall continue to sell the Neo Geo X Gold and support consumers who've purchased one. And in some sad news, best-selling author Tom Clancy has passed away, aged 66. Clancy was known for his military and espionage thrillers, but was perhaps best known to gamers for his work in developing several highly popular universes, including Rainbow Six, Splinter Cell, and Ghost Recon. In total, it's estimated he sold over 100 million books, while his name can be found on over 40 games.
The NBA 2K games keep upping the ante with significant changes year to year. But in its last outing on the current-gen consoles, developer Visual Concepts has gone for subtlety over glitz and glamour.
A show for these people. I cannot believe he pulled that one out in the course of an actual game.
Yeah, 2K14 has gone down the path of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just change a few little things here and there. At first glance, it's still a great-looking game, Hex, but it doesn't seem as flashy as previous ones.
No, it doesn't. The last 3 games have given us Michael Jordan's career, NBA's greatest teams, the ostentatious Jay-Z as producer, and the revered 1992 Team USA. But this year, it's all about LeBron James. From the game cover to the intro video, here's front and center of this game.
To be the best, you have to work the hardest. You have to chase what seems impossible over and over and over again.
Which is fantastic if you're a James fan, but you may struggle to really love 2K14 if you're not, because he's all over it.
The marquee mode this year is called LeBron Path to Greatness.
The one answer I have is that we're going to come strong tonight.
And it takes you on a fantasy journey with James as he seeks to win championships and achieve basketball greatness. You can also choose to keep him with his current team, Miami Heat, or take on a whole different route. And in between matches, we're given the story, and even James chimes in with his own thoughts occasionally.
We just have to step up our games and do the best we can do while they're out.
You know, even though the whole fantasy journey was a little understated, I still got quite wrapped up in the story that the developers came up with.
Yeah, I enjoyed making history as opposed to reliving it.
The 3 from LeBron sinks it.
But you will get the most out of it if you're a basketball fan, because it contains a lot of current NBA lore.
LeBron and Kobe are both having excellent seasons.
Along with James, the other big change up this year is the controls. Again, yes, they've changed them for the 3rd year running.
This was so frustrating at first, because every year it feels like you're back at square one.
Yeah, it was back to good old practice mode for me before any matches. I guess it's good this franchise still has a top-notch training mode.
This year, both shooting and dribbling have been combined in the same pro stick.
The Heat shooting pretty good tonight at 48%.
Quick flicks will produce a dizzying combo of dribbling tricks, and holding the stick in any direction will release a shot.
Kobe attacking. And you can count it, he'll go to the line with a chance to make it 3.
You know, it does suck to have to break all the muscle memory from last year's game, but I really do think these changes are for the better. Landing those complex tricks and shots does feel a lot easier now.
True, but getting the balance can be tricky at first.
You're guaranteed a high-quality shot on a follow, just like he got there.
Sometimes I wanted my guy to dribble and he'd pull up for a shot because I just held the stick a bit too long.
Shoots from 12. And Garnett misses.
I agree, it is a better system overall, and I just hope they stick with it now.
Yeah, and I did like some of the other additions as well. Using left trigger and the right stick will now unleash flashy passes, and the left bumper brings up the 2K play, which selects the best play for that situation.
The feed to Martin. Dishes to Love. Got it. Good job in the low post.
And this is great because it increases your basketball IQ without making you jump into the deep end of a playbook.
The flashy passes look great, but it's a shame that only some team members can pull them off.
Eddie outside. There's the feed to...
Visually, you won't see any big changes, but they have refined player animations to showcase their personalities even more.
Yeah, I've always been really impressed with NBA 2K's ability to make each player's style feel really different.
No one in clear control yet.
In previous games, big players will lumber about compared to smaller ones, but here subtle things like shooting styles can affect players too.
Down low, out to Wade.
The AI has also been improved with defenses becoming much stronger.
Expanding his range. Can't get it to go.
Safe to say this is not a game where you'll be slam dunking left, right and centre.
Yeah, it's a shame because nothing beats slamming those dunks, but this isn't an arcade game, that's not what it's about. I noticed the AI even changes its tactics during play, so if you're having a lot of success using one guy, they'll tend to shut him down as the match progresses.
Puts up the baby hook.
It really keeps you on your toes, and I feel like it's a really human element to this AI. Clever. Clever AI.
LeBron up top. He's covered by Leonard.
Other smaller tweaks I noticed were that players in the paint have more realistic collisions. It's easier to block and the passing has improved, so steals aren't as common.
The missed three from Bargnani. From deep, Williams.
Although you do occasionally still get the goofy missed pass or players going out of bounds, which I don't think professional players would do very often.
Wade outside, and there's the pass to Batty.
The usual My Career, Association and Season modes have returned, but they haven't really been updated.
Yeah, the My Career mode has essentially been the same for the last few titles, and it's still a great mode, but, you know, it's probably due for a bit of a revamp.
We'd like to see what you think about your game as a whole.
The online features My Team from last year, and crews have been reintroduced as well. And for the first time, you can also play with the top 14 EuroLeague teams.
Teodosic. Nailed from three-point land.
You know, Badge, I can't help but feel like, along with FIFA, NBA 2K is holding back a little bit on their current gen games, so I'm really keen to see what they bring to the next gen table.
Yeah, me too. And EA have announced that NBA Live will be on next gen, and even though that game has had a few development issues, I'm excited to see what kind of competition it can inspire between that and 2K. Final thoughts, Hex?
Well, it's not a flashy slam dunk, but, you know, all the little tweaks they've made add up to an even better sim than last year's game, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 as well. Now more Tiny Power.
We made it.
I gotta give up the ciggies. Oh, woo is done, poo-poo.
Odin's wand, take a look at yourself.
I can't believe we'll never see Troy again.
Get off me!
Megan.
Odin's beard, Aaron. If you weren't so busy being such a Troy and Norm might still be alive.
That's it. Yes, you're right. Okay, this papoose does make me look like a but you know what? I don't give a shit. He's my boy, and I want him to know who I am. And if that makes me a then call me a
More Tiny Power next week. From the makers of Echo Chrome and Tokyo Jungle comes Rain.
Rain is a downloadable PSN title about two souls lost in a downpour. A child is in bed with a fever when he notices a girl in the street. He chases after her and suddenly realizes he's invisible. In this new ghostly form, he can only be made out by the outline of rain beating down on him. It's an eerie feeling playing as a character with no physical body, but it plays really well into the game's core mechanic, hiding.
Yes, both the boy and the girl quickly encounter unknowns. Terrifying creatures that hunt you down like a monster from a child's nightmare. And every time they get you, it's intense.
The children were swallowed by the darkness.
The first time this happened, it was quite a shock, Bajo. It kind of reminded me of that feeling of dying in Limbo, and I think it's because you play as a child that can't attack anything, just run and hide. You'll stay alive by hiding under cover, distracting unknowns with dolls, washing your feet when they get marked with coloured water.
They're simple mechanics, but even so, I found this an intriguing and chilling game, especially as that white noise of the rain is in such contrast to the horrifying situations that you're put in.
Yeah, it's paced really well, and that beautiful piano score is the perfect accompaniment to that constant downpour too. I mean, it's almost the perfect game to play on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, the music's really important to this game, isn't it?
Especially as you spend so much of your time simply walking through the environment, soaking in the atmosphere as the game changes perspectives. The framing is considered too. Angles always seem to have a purpose, either a practical one or just to be pleasant to look at.
The game's only a touch over 3 hours long, but they do a really good job of introducing you to the mechanics, and I feel like this is a game that could get frustrating and tedious really fast, but it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah, I don't know, I still felt that some sections were a little bit slow. There were, block-moving puzzles and ladder puzzles that felt a bit like filler to me. It's such a unique idea, I just think they could have done a little bit more with it, so it's a shame they didn't explore those mechanics a little further.
Yeah, I thought the ending was a bit sloppy as well, but I do like that it gives you optional hints that you can take to get through some of those rougher areas. And I love it when games use writing in the world itself and you can move through it and see that text go past.
Yeah, it's got a real storybook feel to it, doesn't it? I enjoyed this, Bajo. It wasn't a revolutionary gaming experience, but it was a nice ride, so I'm giving it 6.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit lovely, but also a little pricey for what you get, so I'm still going to give it 7.
Well, now it's time for another lesson in lore with Dave.
Hi there. I didn't see you come in. I'm Dave, and welcome to the 17th century Baroque edition of MTV Cribs. Today, we're talking Fallout.
They read the good book from Friday to Monday. That's how the weekend goes.
Weaning myself off Fallout was difficult. Thanks to the lack of blue sky in the game, I pretty much had seasonal effectiveness disorder. Plus, every time I saw a clean toilet, I wanted to drink out of it to replenish my health. The wasteland of Fallout is a vast, lonely place that is likely to get you killed to death, whether it's from a bandit's bullet or a giant rad scorpion stinger in your back. Why are they called rad scorpions? They should be called brutal, annoying scorpions. A rad scorpion would look like this. So, how did the wasteland get this way? What brought about such devastation?
War. War never changes.
Even in the very first Fallout, the apocalypse is spoken of as something long past. In fact, it was at least 20 years prior to you stepping out of your underground vault that things went pear-shaped. It was a global conflict over a petroleum shortage that brought on the resource wars of 2052. Several nations began fighting over the world's remaining oil and uranium supplies, starting a war that would last a good 25 years. The United States and China went at each other, with Alaska and Canada suffering in the process.
It was
But it wasn't 25 years of fighting that caused America to be radiated and devastated. It was a sudden flurry of nuclear weapons over a 2-hour period at the very end of the conflict that would put a big full stop on all the fighting. It's a bit hard to fight a war when you're all dead. Almost 100 years of nuclear fallout is what then erodes and drains the land, mutating the remaining inhabitants and forcing survivors to build pitiful settlements in dust bowls and the ruins of gutted buildings. Renovator's dream. Plus, Wi-Fi gone, all the data you backed up to cloud services gone, Happy Meal now rat on a stick with a bobblehead, and Febreze will not fix radiated pants. And then you, the happy-go-lucky vault dweller of Vault 13, stumble out into the hazy light of a crippled world to find your fortune. Oh, and a functioning water chip.
We're running out of drinking water.
So, one more question. Why were these vaults built in the first place? Pretty convenient? No. Or pretty convenient? No, as the French would say.
Where will you be when the atomic bombs fall?
Well, the United States began Project Safe House in 2053 after watching Tel Aviv get destroyed by a terrorist nuclear weapon. Not only that, but they were also suffering from something called the New Plague, a flu-like illness that would kill you, or at least render you sterile.
And in a few short years, you and your fellow vault dwellers will repopulate our great country.
Oh, great, I've got a head cold and my genitals don't work anymore. That was pretty much me for a week after my last trip to Bali. Imagine that forever. Sign me up to the vault.
And prepare for the future.
Good game.
Thanks, Dave. From the creative mind of David Cage, the man behind Heavy Rain, comes Quantic Dream's latest video game experience, Beyond Two Souls. The game stars high-profile film actors Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe. You might even mistake the box art for a movie poster. But if you're familiar with Heavy Rain, you'll recognize this less than conventional approach to gaming.
I was born with a strange gift.
Jody, what have you done?
What am I, a toy? Some kind of a test subject? You use me to do your dirty work!
Feels like you're running away from something.
If I had to say how it all began, I just as well start here.
You play as Jody, a girl who, from the moment she was born, has been linked with an entity. A kind of poltergeist spirit that drifts along beside her. Jody names the entity Iden, and as the player you can choose to inhabit Iden just about at any time, to move through walls, disturb objects, and even occasionally possess other human beings.
These are skills that sound pretty useful to the government, however, who have in fact been training Jody to harness Iden's abilities since her childhood.
Very good, Jody. Let's try something else.
Jody's gifts bring with them alienation, and it's heartbreaking to witness the loneliness of her childhood years, particularly through Iden's voyeuristic, ghostly gaze.
Susan, that thing is like an uncontrollable animal. We have no idea what it's capable of. We have a demon living with us right under our own roof.
You're a monster! Do you hear me? A monster!
Jody eventually grows up in a research facility, with Willem Dafoe playing the scientist that ends up becoming a kind of father figure to her.
I know how you feel.
The timeline jumps around quite a bit as you play through different ages and stages in Jody's life.
Hello?
Nathan?
Jody? Jody, where are you?
I really like this because it kept things fresh and it made the story feel more like a piecing together of puzzle pieces than a straight narrative.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. Plus, the various ages of the character are expertly captured by Ellen Page. They all feel so different. Jody is a child facing the nightmares that slip through from the other realm. Jody is a rebellious, moody teen.
I didn't ask to be different. I just want to go out and have friends and be like other girls my age.
You'll never be like them.
The game takes you through a huge range of experiences and places in order to tell this story, and the performances are all really incredible.
Eagle 5, requesting immediate extraction. Do you read?
You know, it's just rare to play a video game character as fleshed out as Jody.
Yeah, and really Beyond is as much about the relationships you develop with the people you encounter throughout her life as it is about the world of the supernatural. And of course your relationship with Aiden. And I loved how when you're playing as Aiden, you have this protectiveness and closeness to Jodie.
Will you push me, Aiden?
And yet you're given the opportunity to take things too far.
Yeah, as an unseen, untouchable force, it definitely taps into that darker side, doesn't it? But particularly when Jodie is threatened or picked on, because you have the choice to take revenge. I mean, it's easy to call it justice, but there's always that moment where you take things a little bit too far and you're left wondering what came over you.
I also found it quite intense when you take over another person's body and their actions. This is used in the game relatively harmlessly in some situations, but later on when Jodie is recruited into the CIA, this ability is used to force an enemy to kill his comrade.
Well, let's talk about the controls. However interesting this story may be, this more passive player experience will take some getting used to. Quantic Dream really wanted to minimize the interface even further than with their previous game, Heavy Rain. The majority of the time, the only prompts on screen are little white dots, and by moving the right thumbstick towards them, you'll prompt an action animation to play out.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I played Heavy Rain, and that first hour is this adjustment period where you get used to the fact that your involvement is actually quite minimal. You're basically taking part in a constant stream of QuickTime actions to affect how each moment in the scene plays out.
You know, it's almost more exhausting playing a game this way because you're not as actively engaged. You know, you're less connected to the controller, and yet you never fully relax into it because you're involved in every little minor action rather than the major ones like running and gunning and moving the camera around.
You can still walk around and explore, but the game is quick to tell you when you're heading in the wrong direction, and that feels a bit obtrusive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game needs to guide you in the right direction, and I'd rather it do that than have me floundering around wondering where to go, but there's got to be a subtler way to do it than that.
I was just so irritated at how fixed the camera was in general. I know David Cage wants to direct these scenes like a film, but it's just so restrictive and annoying, and I was hoping they'd learn a few more lessons from Heavy Rain.
Yeah, although I did really like that you almost never have to repeat an action if you fail it. The scene just plays out in a different way. Combat, for example, happens in a kind of bullet time where you simply move the thumbstick in the direction of the strike or dodge. And if you really suck in a fight, then Aiden might have to bail you out. Or, for example, when I failed to jump heroically through this window of a burning building, someone then ran in to save me. So, rather than accomplishing a task, your role is more to affect and change how that moment plays out.
It's not very consistent though, is it? The controls in these combat moments.
Good luck, Jodie!
The areas where Jodie is a CIA operative in Somalia are, story-wise, some of the greatest and most affecting in the game.
Climb.
But the run and cover system was just awkward and clunky.
Yes, I think anyone who's played a conventional shooter will be screaming in frustration at the simplicity of the mechanics. But you're right, I think it is more the inconsistency of those controls that really let it down. It took me half the game to figure out when it wanted me to hold a button or just tap it and let go. There's a super daggy training montage to teach you this, but it just doesn't do a very good job.
Yeah, I just don't think these mechanics lend themselves well to the high action scenes. I loved the way these incredible scenes and locations contributed to the story, but your minimal involvement in these high action sequences just felt a bit awkward. When there's an intense moment happening, but all you get to do is tap a button to swim or roll out of the way, it's a little abrupt and anticlimactic.
Controlling Aiden, thankfully, is fairly straightforward. He floats as an omnipresent force, and while you're always attached to Jodie by a metaphysical leash, the freedom to be able to go ahead and scope the landscape in front of you and create distractions is really great.
Aiden, find a way to open that door.
One really cool feature is that you can play this with another person in co-op, playing as Aiden on a touchscreen device. In fact, you can play this entire game with a touchscreen if you want to, connected to your PS3 via Wi-Fi. We tested this out, and given that the controls are so simple, it actually works quite well. And it plays into David Cage's ethos of accessibility.
Yeah, in fact, we caught up with the man himself, and he spoke a little bit about this.
We learned a lot on Heavy Rain. Many people played the game with someone else, so the player was holding the controller, but there was a second person sat on the couch, really enjoying the experience and sharing the experience. And most of the time playing the puppet master, like saying, do this, do that, don't go there. And it was very interesting because on Beyond we thought, okay, what can we do to make this second person play and not just watch? Most of all, we understood that the controller could be a barrier for these people to enter the game space, and we thought, okay, let's see what we can do to offer them a simplified controller. For us, this is a big evolution, trying to make the game accessible to a wider audience.
Despite the controls feeling a bit awkward at times, you do settle into it. It may seem strange at first, playing a role in such mundane actions, but this kind of storytelling is about making you feel more connected to the character than ever. And there is a wonderful sense of contrast, as one minute you might be fighting off spectral demons in the desert, and the next you might be chopping vegetables.
Ah, it's a roller coaster, Bajo. You're braving snowstorms, delivering babies. Yes, from the makers of the game that brought you Press X to Jason comes Press X to cut umbilical cord. But I think the simplest scenes are almost more affecting because often those are the choices that end up carrying the most weight. And that might be for the story or for your personal relationship with the characters. The scene where Jodie is preparing for a date was one where I suddenly felt real ownership over the decisions I made for her, even though there were silly things like choosing what music to play or what to wear. Because I wanted her to be herself, and I suppose I related to that situation and the normalcy of it all. And Jodie's yearning for a normal life is ever present.
Jodie, I think there's something wrong with Aiden.
Give me a second. I'm fed up with you and your goddamn jealousy. So why don't you just go back to whatever ethereal fucking place you came from and let me get on with my life?
I think the game's greatest triumph is the way that it uses player choice to constantly change the experience. Sometimes you're presented with some really intense options that will either prompt you to make a decision based purely on curiosity, or truly make you take pause to consider how you want things to work out for Jodie.
Yeah, and some of these choices really do carry consequence, but then some just funnel you back into whatever decision the game wants you to make, which I find really irritating. For example, when teen Jodie goes to a bar and is asked by a seedy guy to play a game of pool, I was like, oh hell no, creep. But then the scene just has her eventually accepting anyway.
All right, just one game.
I understand certain actions need to play out in order to tell a particular story, but then why give me the option if it's not going to have any effect on the outcome?
Yeah, there was a fair bit of that in Heavy Rain as well, the illusion of choice.
Just go to your room.
This is a really interesting game, and I think we could keep talking about it for hours, which really is a testament to the fact that it is such a unique experience. For me, this is one of those occasions where there are many obvious flaws, and even the core mechanics might be enough to turn people off. But once I was in this, I was in it. The story was dark, at times terrifying. The relationship between Jodie and Aiden is so complex.
Stop that, Aiden. I told you I didn't want to play with you anymore.
And it's a game that made me feel things, real things. You know, I played through multiple different endings just to see if the outcomes really were genuinely different, and I'm happy to say that they were. But even going back and deliberately making different decisions was so hard for me because I felt so connected to the choices that I'd made for Jodie that going against that just made me feel really uncomfortable, even though I wasn't overriding my save.
I think any game that tries to challenge gamers in unique ways like this is really exciting. I wish they'd learnt their lesson from Heavy Rain though, because some of these core mechanics and controls are just so frustrating and awkward, and they should have been improved upon. But even with those issues, I had a really personal and connected experience to this game, and that's a pretty rare thing. I don't think I'd want to play more than one of these types of games a year, but I had a great time with this one, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Would I recommend this? Absolutely, but I can't guarantee that everyone will love it. I'm giving it 8 out of 10.
Tired of fighting, yeah. Tired of fighting. Fighting for a lost cause.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week? It was Tenchu Stealth Assassins from 1998 on the PS1. Known as one of the first ninja games to embrace stealth gameplay, it also incorporated motion capture, hiring martial artist Sho Kosugi for the combat animations. And it's our Guess the Game because it was developed by Acquire, the same team behind this week's Rain.
Next week, it's back to Los Santos for GTA 5 Online, which we all found to be a pleasant, relaxing experience.
By the way, I started a gang war.
Ah,
Oh, there it goes.
Don't forget, you can catch up with all of the games we've been playing across Good Game and Spawn Point in Pocket Edition, which airs every Saturday at 8:20 p.m. on ABC2.
Until next time, Bajo out.
Hex out.